All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. The board meeting of Gateway Development Commission is now called to order. Today, we're holding a public meeting of the Gateway Development Commission's Board of Commissioners. Due to the challenges related to the ongoing COVID-19 public health crisis and in light of the advice from the state of New Jersey, today's meeting is being held virtually via teleconference with audio being live streamed from the Gateway program website. The Commission is continuing to solicit comments from the public for today's virtual meeting. A form for soliciting these comments is posted on the Gateway program website for those who wish to submit a comment for today's meeting. Acting Secretary Caulfield, may I ask you to conduct a roll call and report on the public notice for today's meeting?
Thank you, Co-Chair. I will now conduct the roll call. Co-Chair Greg Walverk.
I'm here.
Co-Chair Cohen.
I'm here too.
Vice Chair Kosha.
I'm here.
Commissioner Barbas.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Here.
And Commissioner Zarro is currently absent at this meeting. If he is able to join, we will let the public know. And we do have a quorum of the remaining commissioners. Adequate notice of today's regular public meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Gateway Development Commission has been provided in accordance with the Commission's enabling legislation. The agenda and public documents pertaining to the board meeting have been made publicly available on the Gateway Program's website. Notice of the meeting was posted to the website 5 business days before the meeting, and public notice of the time and place of the meeting was provided to appropriate media outlets. A video recording of this meeting will be posted on the Gateway Program website.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Caulfield. I want to welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Gateway Development Commission. Before we turn to the Gateway Program update, the next item on today's agenda is to report on the minutes of July 12th, 2021 meeting of the board. I will now turn to Mr. Caulfield again for a report on the minutes of that meeting.
Copies of the minutes of the meeting of July 12th, 2021 were delivered in electronic form by myself as acting secretary to the governors of New York and New Jersey on July 21st, 2021. The time for action by the governors of New York and New Jersey expired at midnight on August 5th, 2021, at which time actions recorded in the minutes went into full force and effect.
Thank you, Mr. Caulfield. We will now turn to Frank Stacker, Steve Sigmund, and Suma Mandel for an update on the Gateway program. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorelberg. It's Frank Staker here, and good morning, Commissioners. We have several updates to share this morning regarding progress on Gateway. We'll touch on some aspects relevant to the financial plan. Steve Sigmund will provide some updates regarding Block 675, as well as further progress regarding geotech borings and next steps, and including and then Suma will refer to a couple of board action items. Thank you. Next slide. So, first slide we want to cover today was there's been a lot of news on infrastructure the last days, very exciting, and provide an update on the bipartisan infrastructure bill and its support and how it helps the Gateway program through increased transportation funding. I think the first thing to say is to say thank you to the congressional delegations, New York and New Jersey, supporting this for their strong and persistent support in advancing the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It's been a journey, and it was very pleasing and exciting to see the signature on the bill yesterday. As we say, the bill was represents the largest federal investment in public transit and intercity rail ever. We want to give you a few highlights of the infrastructure bill that are relevant to Gateway. You can see in the pie chart there, it's a big number, 550 billion generally associated to infrastructure over 5 years. We've called out there a couple of relevant items: public transit, as well as passenger and freight rail. Just going down a layer and identifying a few of the relevant programs. I think we want to touch on the CIG program, which is one that we talk about a lot because it's assumed in our financial plan. There is an additional $8 billion appropriated over 5 years in the CIG program. That's on top of the $15 billion that is anticipated to be authorized for the program. So, and I think the number's been reported publicly, $23 billion total, making it a much larger program than it has been before. There'll also be some transparency changes there, including a new public CIG dashboard. I think it's important to mention our partner Amtrak through the Northeast Corridor Grant Program has $6 billion appropriated over 5 years, including as well as authorized amounts as well. Again, a substantial increase on previous years, and separate from its national network grants. Another big change is the heading Federal State Partnership for Intercity Passenger Rail Grants, which is a program with up to $24 billion appropriated for NEC projects over the next 5 years. It's a very important program, obviously, for the Northeast Corridor generally, providing a broader scope and a much larger amount than is applied previously. There'll be many projects on the Northeast Corridor that are eligible for utilization of these funds. I think I wanted to mention briefly, again, there's lots of relevant parts of the bill relevant for Gateway. Just making some highlights here. The National Infrastructure Project Assistance Program, again, another example of a program, $5 billion over 5 years, for which projects such as the tunnel project, for example, would be eligible. And then finally, I want to mention a Build America Bureau program change to their loan programs, which I think will be relevant for our project and for other large infrastructure projects around the country. One of the changes that's been made, which is going to be important for these kinds of projects, is extension of TIFIA and RIF loan maturities, which will now be up to 75 years after substantial completion. So that's, for context, that's 40 years longer than was previously the case. That change better matches the useful life of infrastructure assets to such as the tunnel with its 100+ year useful life to the funding and financing that's being put in place. So I'd like to point out that this change is of great benefit, obviously, to long useful life infrastructure projects such as ours. And I'd also say on this particular item, I'd personally like to thank Senator Schumer for his leadership on this particular issue, and which it can help make large infrastructure projects around the country more affordable. So this is a very important change. Thank you. Next slide. I want to highlight that we are still seeing great support and assistance from our federal partners. I think we've mentioned previously some of these items, but I think it's important to highlight a couple of things here. Firstly, the receipt of the final environmental impact statement and record of decision back in May, which really kicked off a lot of the activities that we currently have underway. It was certainly a major milestone reflecting the federal, state, local collaboration and commitment. We're also waiting and working closely with our partners and the Army Corps to finalize permits for working in the US waters, in the Meadowlands and the Hudson River. I think finally, I'd say GDC and the partners are actively working at the moment to prepare material to help facilitate further progress in the CIG program. Thank you. Next slide. And I think here we thought it was important just to reiterate as well as obviously the federal actions being taken, The efforts also being made by the partners to the project. And to reiterate, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey's commitment they've made to the Hudson Tunnel Project, and that commitment to support low-interest federal loans on the financial plan for the asset. The state of New York's commitment, now included in their financial year 22 enacted capital program and financial plan. The state of New Jersey's commitment, which is planned to be provided by the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, ultimately to support those low-interest loans. And of course, Amtrak's commitment for the project's construction costs as well, evidenced through its acquisition of property in Manhattan, as well as supporting letters from its senior management. And Steve Sigmund will talk about that in a minute here. Finally, working cooperatively with FTA. I think it's important to make that point that we do have a partner in this endeavor. They, along with obviously FRA, Build America Bureau, US DOT generally, we're seeing lots of support across DOT for the project, and that's helping us progress the project more rapidly. Thank you. And Steve, I think you've got the next slide.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Frank, and good morning, commissioners. Thank you for having us. So we wanted to spend a few minutes highlighting some of the actions that are being taken as a result of that closer partnership with the federal administration that Frank just spoke of. First, Block 675, Lot 1, which is critical on the critical path to the Hudson Tunnel Project and necessary for a vent shaft and fan plant in that project. Amtrak, our partner, is responsible for New York property acquisition in the project, and because the ROD was issued in late May, as Frank said, Amtrak was able to move quickly to acquire that property, and it was acquired at a cost that actually was $715 million lower than the estimated cost that had been carried through previous financial plans for the project. So it helped mitigate significantly the cost increases that had happened over time because of the delays by the prior administration. As I said, it's at a critical location in the project for the vent shaft and the fan plant, and already the partnership has started work on that site. Geotechnical Investigations. Can you go to the next slide, please? So commissioners, as you recall, through our work with the private sector and the RFI process, we had conducted a number of geotechnical borings on the New Jersey side and in the Hudson River and further up in Manhattan. We were not able to start the geotechnical investigations on this site until the site had been acquired. So again, the issuance of the ROD and that partnership was so important to finishing this work. And this work, the geotechnical investigations, have to be done in order to move to the engineering phase of the CIG process. It is a prerequisite. So right now, our partners have undertaken a geotechnical program to investigate the soil and the rock characteristics under Lot 675 in order to understand where they need to plant the foundations and things like that for the vent shaft and the fan plant, and to better understand what the tunnel will be coming into after it goes through the bulkhead in the Hudson River. Next slide. So just a little bit deeper dive into what these geotechnical borings are. It's 13 subsurface locations at Block 675, which you see are highlighted here in the red and the blue. And just to understand a little better, that the circle that you see there is the vent shaft, which will go down to about 150 feet. That's part of what they're investigating now, how deep it needs to go down, given what the rock and soil conditions are like, and the fan plant that will then be built adjacent to it, both of which connect to the tunnel itself. As you see in that diagram, those two tubes are the new tunnel. You see in the pictures, just as an example of what they're finding. Obviously, on the top layers, which is the one on the right, there's a significant amount of landfill. Manhattan was extended in the 1800s to the west, and that's where this property lies. So there are significant things they're finding down there, like wooden stairs and steel structures and things. And so, obviously you can't dig the vent shaft in those places. So they have to figure out other ways to get around some of that fill. And then they get down to the rock face itself, which is the picture you see on the left, which is, rock from melting ice and melting glaciers. So that's where you can really plant the foundations for the shaft in order to have a stronger foundation to plant into it. So it's just another example of how many enormously complicated projects go together to make up this entire Hudson Tunnel project. Next slide. And just to focus for a minute on next steps in the project, obviously every minute counts. We've made this point countless times for a reason, that we need to get started with the full construction work in order to finish. And the sooner we get started, the better we will be at mitigating the overall cost, since the costs just from inflation and escalation go up almost $1 million a day. So the things we need in the immediate are a medium or higher rating from the FTA for the Hudson Tunnel project for our CIG application. And as we've said numerous times, we're continuing to work with the FTA very closely on that. Looking at potential opportunities for early work, like the section over Tunnelly Avenue in New Jersey that the portal to the tunnel will run under, and continuing to work with the administration, our congressional champions to support these projects. And obviously, a big breakthrough was made this week in terms of the amount of additional federal funding that could be available to our projects and to this project specifically. So that is all good news, and we will continue to work to access those funds. And I'll turn it over to Suma Mandel for the actions that we're asking of you today.
Thanks, Steve. Today, we're requesting that the board adopt 2 items required by the Gateway Development Commission Act. First, a code of conduct applicable to commissioners, officers, employees, and vendors, and other contractors, and procurement guidelines. These policies are attached to the resolution as Exhibits A and B. As with our prior policies, all items were prepared in accordance with the Gateway Development Commission Act and reflect review and comment by the 2 governor's offices and Gateway's project partners. Along with the bylaws and other policies adopted at the March and July board meetings, these are the remaining policies required by the Commission's enabling legislation. We continue to work closely with the project partners to establish the Commission, including the formulation of a mission statement and an operating budget. This ends our presentation. Thank you, Co-Chair Graylberg.
Thank you. Thanks, Frank, Suma, and Dave for the update. Appreciate it. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Prior to voting on today's action item, I note for the record that the Commission has solicited comments from the public in advance of and during today's virtual meeting. A form for the soliciting of these comments was posted to the GDC website and was available throughout today's meeting. Comments received by 5 p.m. on Monday, November 15th, 2021, of which there are 9, have been distributed to the board and posted on the Gateway Program website in advance of today's meeting. There were also 4 comments previously received by the Commission for the prior scheduled October 25th, 2021 board meeting, which was canceled and rescheduled to today given scheduling conflicts on the original date. Comments received during today's meeting will be distributed to the board and posted on the Gateway Program website after today's meeting. All public comments received will also be filed in the Commission's records. Now we'll move to the action item for today's meeting. The action item before the board today is the adoption of policies. Do any of the commissioners wish to comment? I make a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I move this motion to a vote. Mr. Caulfield, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Co-Chair Gray-Wolverk.
Yes.
Co-Chair Cohen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kosha. Vice Chair Kosha,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Barbas,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Zarrow remains absent. The motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Caulfield. We will now be entering into executive session to discuss contract negotiations, personnel matters, and matters in which the release of information could impair your right to receive funds from the United States or other grantor. After the executive session, the board will reconvene in public session for the purpose of adjourning the meeting and for no further business will be conducted at that time. I make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss contract negotiations, personnel matters, and matters in which the release of the information could impair a right to receive funds from the federal, or rather the United States or other grantor. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Yep.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. We'll reconvene in a little bit.
All right, I hereby reconvene the open session board meeting. Mr. Caulfield, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Co-Chair, we have all commissioners in attendance with the exception of Jerry Zarrow, but we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. There being no further business, I motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I move this motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Motion is approved and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.